Hey guys, so welcome to this week on the 5 Awesome Geeks. This week we are doing some gameplay. I decided to play SimCity 2000, which is actually one of my favorite games from when I was a young kid. This is my favorite version of SimCity. This is the only one that I really actually played. When I start, I actually like to edit my terrain right away because sometimes it's a lot easier if you can create the specific terrain so you're not going over the mountains and things like that. Going over the water isn't so bad, but I still delete some of the water. I do like to keep a good portion of it. I know some people will delete everything and then just put water along the perimeter, but that's not super realistic, and I do like to keep my game at least slightly realistic, even if I am editing the terrain. So that's what I'm actually doing here. Quickly, this is actually kind of a very time-consuming process, and it's kind of annoying. I start usually with the level terrain button, and then I remember all the time that the lower terrain button actually makes this process a little bit quicker. The only downside to the lower terrain button versus the level terrain button is the fact that if you're not careful, you'll end up creating a lake, and you'll see that later. I do make some mistakes with the water that I have to, I correct some of it. I don't correct all of it, but I do correct some of it. This can, like I said, this is a very time-consuming process. As you can see, I'm almost halfway done with the map. And yeah, so essentially I'm new to this OBS, gameplay thing. So that's why I'm opting to do it this way. I haven't quite figured out how to record audio at the same time. So this is how we ended up doing it this week, or I ended up doing it this week. Was playing the game for a little while. I played for about 45 minutes, and then just decided to do audio later while I'm watching myself play, which is really annoying because this, like I said, takes a long time. I'm now at this point, I have switched to the lower terrain, so you'll notice it's going a little bit quicker because I finally got annoyed and was like, you know what, I'm just going to go to lower terrain. As you can kind of see down where I just did that by the river, you'll notice that I extended the river a little bit. That's one of the things that I just never did go back and fix. There's only one part that I actually go back and fix. But this just makes the gameplay so much easier when you're building the city, because the way that the game works is there's only so many blocks that you can reach without another road. And roads can sometimes just be really, really difficult when you're dealing with going up and down, the hills and mountains and things like that. So like I said, I do like to have a flat surface, a completely flat surface when working. Sometimes I will leave a little plateau, like the one level up, like you're kind of seeing what's left over now. I will sometimes leave a little bit of a plateau, but generally speaking, I will get rid of all of the altitudes and just have a level playing field. Like I said, water, I'm not such a big stickler on getting rid of. You saw at the beginning I got rid of a little bit, and again I go back and I correct the one mistake I did make with the river, with the lower terrain tool here. And we're almost done now, so that's good. You'll actually get to hear me talk about how I play the game and things like that, but here I'm going to go back now and fix that one thing with the level terrain tool. And I decided where I was going to start, and here we go. So I finally finished, and I'm going to call my town the 5 Awesome Geeks, of course, because that is this channel. We're starting in the year 1900, and we're starting with $20,000. This is something that pops up every once in a while. It's a newspaper that you can actually, this first one really doesn't give you much information, but there is really good information in the newspapers when they do pop up. It'll teach you when you should be evolving your city into something more. It'll tell you when to start putting in subways and things like that. Again, that very first one, not super important. So I'm gonna start down in this lower corner over here. And I always start with putting in roads, especially along the perimeter, because the very first thing you want to put in is a power plant. As you can kind of see where it says road $10, you'll see power plant needed. I always start with a power plant, and you can't put a power plant up against the edge of the city. So I always put a road up against the edge of the city so that I remember to myself to not even try for a power plant. So here I go for a power plant, and then I remembered, oh no, I want to teach you guys why I chose that one. So you can click the info buttons above each one. That'll kind of tell you what each power plant is about. We don't have the ability to do hydroelectric, so I kind of skipped that because, again, I got rid of all terrain, and so there is no waterfalls. And then there's the oil power as well this early on in the game. If you start later, like in the 2000s or further on, you'll have more options because they come as time develops. But I always start with the coal power because it's cheaper. Sure, your people will complain about pollution a lot quicker, but there are ways around that. I always have a 4x4 square of road, and you can see I made a little mistake here with the road, so I do go back and I fix that. So I move the road over just a little bit. I didn't count when I put the road in, which I guess I probably should have. So the SimCity 2000 was made in 1993. As you can kind of tell, it's not the greatest at deleting stuff or things like that. And I also turn off disasters. I'll turn disasters back on once the city gets a little bit further along, as once it's kind of taking care of itself. I'll turn the disasters back on and kind of let nature take its course. I put the water pumps in right away as well, because that's one of the things that your people will complain about is lack of water if you don't have water. This pops up at the end of every year, and I do go through it. Obviously, I can't lower taxes right now. There is nobody to grow into the city. So people are already asking for pollution control because you're not using a very nice power plant. So I go in and I put in pollution controls. I actually listen to these people as often as I possibly can, to know what better to do with my city. So now this lady says a public smoking ban will help everybody. And then I forgot that I actually have to go back up to city ordinances in order to do that. So I go back to city ordinances finally, and I put in the public smoking ban once I find it. There it is. And then I go back to her to see what else she has to say. And she says, free clinics will be great. And it makes you popular. You want to be popular with people. You want people to stay in your city. So I go and I put in free clinics. And then I go back to her again and I see, oh, general CPR training. Okay, let's go ahead and let's do general CPR training. And so I just keep going back to these people until they're happy with where we're at. The only person I don't listen to is this guy, because he almost always says we have too many roads, remove some, save on maintenance. He almost always says that. I do get him to a point during this game, however, where he's no longer saying that. So here I am putting in some dense industrial. Again, I go 4x4. And this is going to be a good start to the game for you to start putting in industrial. That's going to add jobs to your city. And then after that, you're going to want to really consider putting in some, residential so that people can start building homes and things like that. I always like to try and keep industrial away from residential many times in these games. Sometimes I don't always. I think I do screw up a little bit in this game doing that. But I try to, because who wants to live next to an industrial park? I certainly don't want to, so I try really hard not to. I do keep canceling putting in that bridge there, because it's silly to put a bridge in something that small. As you can see, I'm doing, again, those 4x4 squares, and here's my first residential. The only piece of residential that's really touching the industrial is going to be those corners, and that's pretty much it. So my first goal is always the industrial and then start putting in residential. And then I put in a school, and then I need to put in a police station, and then a fire station, and then a hospital. I did turn off disasters, so technically speaking, we don't need the fire station because fires won't happen. Some people even go as far as to say you don't actually even need police during no disasters because there are no riots. But people will still complain about crime if there are no police stations. So police stations are still important to me. We're into our second year now, and you can kind of see here how money's actually starting to be spent. Going through all these people again, just seeing what they might want me to change. At this point in time, as you can see, we're actually spending more than we are making at this point, so it's not a good situation for our city, but that's also because we're just starting. The industrial is starting to boom. You're seeing some houses popping up in that residential and things like that. So at this point, I actually did forget that I needed to actually put the pumps or the pipes in for those water pumps. So I haven't actually done that yet. I put some light residential around the school for a couple of reasons. One, it's right against an industrial, and two, it's right next to a school. So the light residential is going to be less expensive homes and things like that. Same thing with the light industrial and the light commercial. They're going to be, so the dense commercial is going to be more like your skyscrapers and things like that, where your light commercial is going to be more like, mom and pop shop kind of situations. And then your light industrial is going to be, from what I remember and understand, is less pollution, but it's also less money. So there's that. So now I'm trying to create these. I realize I messed up in one of my roads. So I'm going to go ahead and go in and fix that, which actually works out because then there's not that weird, like, two intersection situation right next to each other. So as you can kind of see, I'm not doing a 4x4 right there because of that water that I actually made that didn't go back. One of the ones I didn't go back and fix. I'm putting residential over there to kind of give them a little bit more of a rural feel. I also, and now into our third year, go through each and every person again just to see what they may or may not need us to change. Again, I don't listen to our transit authority as often as I probably should. But, so our education guy says we need a college. I will eventually, here we go, to get a college there. So I threw a college in right there. And now I'm going to, if I remember correctly, I put some light residential around the college because college kids need homes too. And I'm realizing, what's going on? Why is this not working? And I realize that it's just one of the glitches in the game that sometimes happen, especially this old of a game, where I just needed to put something else in there. Oh, and I did go with dense residential, and then eventually the actual game realized it. I'm not sure when I realized I need to put in the pipes or the sewer system, but I haven't done that yet. We're in 1903 and people still don't have running water in their homes, so I'm a great mayor at this point. Because that's essentially what you are. You are the mayor of this city. Obviously, you have a lot more power than most mayors are going to, and you are obviously immortal because I've gotten from 1990 to the year 3000 before in one of my games, before I just got really bored and just turned on disasters and forced disasters to happen. There's some light residential for you a little bit further away from the water, because again, you got to think about it very realistically. Closer to the water you are, the more expensive your homes are going to be. Closer to the commercial or the industrial, then the less expensive your homes are going to be. This one is not as well planned as some other ones that I have done in the past. So that's unfortunate. I think this is where my battery started to die. Nope, it's not. My battery starts to die at some point, so I need to plug my computer in, and I realized my plug wasn't right here. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make some more money. So the thing that I'm going to do is going to decrease the budget for everything except for Transit Authority. So I may not listen to Transit Authority very often, but I also don't cut their budget, because the second you cut their budget, you start losing road. And you have to just continue to replace it. So I try to keep education as high as I can and health and welfare as high as I can, but because I don't have disasters, I don't really care about the fire department as much, and I don't care about the police department as much. But I'm trying to do everything I can to not raise taxes, because raising taxes will make people move out. And you don't want people to move out, you want people to move in. So you want to try and keep taxes, when it's reasonable, you want to keep taxes as low as possible. Obviously, in some cases, and you'll see me in this game too, where I do actually raise the taxes. I think this must be where my computer died. Or my computer was almost dead and I needed to go get the plug. We'll know once the year thing pops up. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so nope. I was just apparently distracted for a second. So what I'm showing you here is you can actually tell what your city needs by looking at that little thing. Residential, commercial, industrial. I need a lot more residential in my game at this point. You can also bring up your budget at any point. You can see what your neighboring cities are looking like. Rimmer is actually a city that I have built in the past, so they just use that. How your population is looking, what your city looks like via satellite map, and then just some graphs on what things are being used, things like that. And just some different kind of information that can help you along the way. Some of the other things, one I actually have over, you can actually double check and see what each thing is being used for, what the grade levels are in schools, how many people are currently in the jail. So I'm going to put in a big park because people haven't been asking for it necessarily, but people really like that. Also raise property value around there, so I always like to put residential around there to raise the taxes and the property value right there. So I put dense, there's that, so going through again with all of my different people. I think I missed that a couple of times because I don't always go through. So rates are good right now, floating a bond to take advantage. I felt like this was just a little too early in the game. I'm not making enough money at this point to be able to do that. So I did miss my opportunity to float a bond and have more money in the game, which was really unfortunate. I like when that pops up because if we floated a bond and we got $20,000 more, that would have helped tremendously. At some points, I actually kind of have to just turn up the speed in the game just so we can get through years and save up a little bit of money. And I actually ended up stopping at a really good point in time because I was running out of money and I needed a new power plant. So spoiler ahead, this city was having some trouble sustaining itself, which was unfortunate. But this was just more or less just me kind of teaching you guys how this game is played, and the fact that I played this since 1993. Obviously, it took many years in between. Origin just happened to have this up for free at some point. I don't know if it's still available, but it might be. But Origin had this available for free at one point. So I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't played that game in like 20 years. I want to play it. But I did play this a lot when I was a kid and into my teenage years even, until that computer died, and then I finally had to give up playing this game because we couldn't download it anymore. So it was really fun when I got to play this game again. I mean, as you can kind of tell, it's a little bit on the boring side, but it's really fun if you're into economics. It's really fun if you're into the idea of playing this game. The one thing I didn't mention, here I go, putting in the pipes finally. The one thing I didn't actually mention, so the sewer system, I do kind of the same thing that actual cities do, and it goes underneath the roads. It's the easiest and quickest, most efficient way, especially since the pipes can actually kind of add up over time because they're $3 per square foot or per square. It's the most efficient way to water your city. So finally 1905, and people can finally have running water in their homes. But the one thing I forgot to mention is I put the water pumps right next to water because if you're pulling water from the body of water into the pumps, those pumps will cover a lot more ground. So sometimes, because I don't do this very well in a lot of cases, I'll have to turn off the roads so you can kind of still see the roads in this view, even though everything else becomes invisible. You can still see the roads. I will eventually turn off the roads. There you go. So I can see where I'm missing. And at this point, you can kind of see where I'm definitely missing some pipes. So I just go back in through and put those pipes in. And obviously everybody at this point in the city is watered except for this little lone person who decided to build right in the middle of that subdivision, but that person's decision, I guess. But eventually that person will be watered once there's a clear cut connection. So at this point in the game, we're still just trying to sustain ourselves. We only have $4,400 left in the budget, or money left in the bank, not even in the budget, just in the bank. So at this point, I'm going, I really just need some money. So I was kind of hoping that the next year we were more sustainable and the rates would still be good and I could still float that bond. Unfortunately, like I said, I totally missed the opportunity to do that. So we're about to hit that next year because we're in December, and here's that next year. I'm not moving right away, so obviously this is when I went to go get my charger. And so we're looking through everybody again. We're making $71 this following year. So that's, I mean, pretty decent money, I guess. But, you know, I like it when we're making thousands of dollars per year. And as you can kind of see in that residential area, we don't need any residential. We need more industrial and commercial. So that's what I'm looking at right now, and just what I'm building off where I'm building off of, because I want to put some more industrial over there. But as you can kind of see, our residential is not being taken up very much right now, and there's still so many places left. It's because nobody's moving into the city because of the fact that there isn't enough jobs. So we need to create more jobs by putting in more industrial and commercial. If you do anything in this game, it is to listen to that little bar graph right in front of you, the RCI bar graph, where you see the green, blue, and yellow bars. That actually will tell you what your city needs in order to become self-sustainable. And you just have to follow whatever the market basically is telling you with that. Right now, it's telling us that we need a lot more industrial, a little bit more commercial, and absolutely no more residential. But that also can change. And now I'm putting in more pipes because I'm obviously worried about more pipes. And we have a hurricane warning. I don't worry about that because I turned off the disasters. So I do pay attention to that, but obviously I'm not concerned with hurricane warnings because there are no disasters. So we won't have any hurricanes, we won't have any earthquakes, we won't have any riots, we won't have any aliens attacking. At this point, again, a big reason why I put in the emergency response teams is because of the fact that I do eventually turn on disasters. I just like to get the game going because it's no fun if you're creating the city, if you're trying to become sustainable, and then you only have one fire department because it's all your city requires, and all of a sudden a fire starts for some oddball reason and you can't put it out because you don't have enough firemen. So here I am going to change the speed. I think this is where I go down to turtle. I'm not moving. I don't know if this is just being laggy or what, but it's, you know, there we go. So 5,000 Geeks awakens. We finally have got a new newspaper. This is telling us that we have awakened, which means that we are now capable of getting a mayor house. And also we are looking at the survey of what our people are saying. So at this point, crime is the biggest concern because I don't have enough police stations and I have decreased their budget. Health is also an issue because obviously I've decreased their budget and we only have the one hospital. And then unemployment is the third issue that we have. And again, that's because we need more industrial and commercial at this point. So it's just a matter of getting those taken care of. And yeah, I think this is just really lagging at this point. Okay, so at this point now, we don't need any more commercial, and we're starting to need a little bit more residential and a little bit more industrial. So commercial seems to be the least needed in the cities, which I think is weird. I would think that commercial is actually a decent amount, but the industrial and the residential tend to be the most important part. That's one of the ones I just skipped and just continued on because I think I actually must have put it up to Cheetah to try and get some more money because now we're at 20. We're at 22.54 for money now, and so that's really unfortunate. We need more money than that, and I'm not sure why this is not moving the way that it should be, but it's not, unfortunately. I'm not sure why I'm not moving. There we go. I just apparently in that lag put in a bunch of residential because obviously, as you can see, we need more residential. And now it's actually already switched to we need more commercial now. So, and more residential, and we don't need any more industrial at this point in time. Like I said, this changes constantly throughout your game and you need to be paying attention. If you're just putting in nothing but industrial and then you realize, oh, I haven't needed industrial for a long time, but now I need more residential in order to actually fill positions. So you can see here I'm putting in more commercial because whenever I see I need more commercial, I realize, ooh, I am really low and really out. So I'm putting in some dense commercial to try and entice more people to come in and rent locations and things like that, which again is very, very important. You'll actually start to see cars also on the streets, which also means that the city is thriving a little bit better, which is nice. You want your city to thrive. Essentially, you want to get to a point with this game that you have the entire city, like the entire block, completely filled. And I've gotten there a few times. I usually, in order to do that and not have it be super long or super difficult, I actually turn off disasters for the entire game until the thing is full, and then I turn disasters back on, because there's really not much left you can do. You kind of win the game at that point. But it's also about maintaining. And so whenever something starts to look down, drab, you start to go in and bulldoze those things and things like that. We are now making $414 for the next year, so we're losing $1 somewhere in the mix. I still am not feeling too comfortable at putting stuff back up, so we're just eventually going to just pop forward into, oops, there, I plugged my computer back in. That's what happened. Look at that. I plugged my computer back in, so that's where I actually went and got my plug. And plugged my computer back in, and actually it might start working a little bit better now because my computer was really low on battery. So maybe that's it. Okay, so we have no advice at this time with our transit authority. This is a rare occurrence, people. Note this moment in time, because this is a very rare occurrence. It is super common for him to, again, just always to be like, we have too many roads. Get rid of some of the roads. And a big portion of that is I don't really partake in a lot of the train stuff, because they just tend to take up a lot of usable space that I can be using for the zoning. So I usually just focus on the roads. I usually don't even focus too much on subways or highways even, because again, they just take up a lot of space. And I just accidentally went across the map. So going through here, our crime is at a comparable national average. We need to lower taxes. So I'm going to lower taxes by 1%, which even just doing it by the 1% will be huge. So Sydney places subways. This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where it's going to kind of tell you when you should start evolving your city. So at this point in time, I was trying to remember how to find subways, and I remembered they're under railroad. At this point in time, it's really important to start considering the option of evolving your city, because you want to be competitive with the other cities that pop up in the thing. So you want to be able to go, okay, well, I can start putting in subways. Again, I focus mostly on just the roads, because it's just a little bit easier to be able to block off the road a lot more effectively if you just focus on simple roads versus anything else. The subway really won't throw too much off because it's underneath, but the railroad and the highway will definitely throw things off. We can't even do highways yet at this point, because highways didn't exist in 1920 apparently, or at least the highway that it's actually like an overpass highway. It's like up above the ground, so it's a little bit more modern of a road. So at some point, I actually want to start the game the way you really should and start with railroad and eventually start putting in road. Stuff like that. So again, here I am pointing out the hurricane warning, but I turned off disasters, and that was just me, again, kind of reiterating the fact that, you know what, that does pop up from time to time. You don't have to worry about it if you turn off disasters. And as you can see, gridding out the city can really help you get an idea of where you're going to be putting stuff. And you'll see I'm actually counting spaces to make sure that I have it correct. And mistakes cost me $1. Like, I don't care. It does add up after so many mistakes, but anyway. So I had to go around that water. And so now, again, around water, I like to try and put residential, because putting in residential, this is where I screw up. I put dense residential right next to dense industrial, which it should have been the other way around. The dense residential should be where I put the light residential, and the light residential should be where I put the dense residential. But unfortunately, I messed up. So there's that. I don't go over water unless I really need to, and that's usually when I hit the river and I can't do anything else on this side of the river. And then I'll put, and then I'll do a couple of bridges over the river and be able to get that all figured out. So I'm going back to up to llama here at this point. So the speed is back to normal. I did slow it down, and now I remembered, oh, I have more pipes that I need to put in. So I need to turn off the roads. It's a little earlier than I thought about turning off the roads, but I think it was because I forgot. Oh, public busing. So we should be putting in bus stations at this point now. There, I realized I forgot. I was off there. That's why I usually don't turn off roads that quickly, but I turned off roads because I think it was obviously probably where I just didn't quite remember where I left off, which is always incredibly possible. So yep, just putting in some more pipes, making sure that everybody gets water. 403, we're going back up. We did dip down a little bit, which is unfortunate. But you know, we got back in the game. We did get back in the game. So just again, trying to make this city sustainable is what's important. Cosmo! Sorry. And because I'm doing this while I'm watching, I'm going to be keeping in everything. So, yeah. Moving on. This is like the worst ever because my dog's ridiculously restless because he lost a toy. So anyway, I realized there was more even down there. And I started getting concerned here because we started losing water. Sometimes that means I need to put in more pumps. Sometimes that just means that there isn't enough connection, but it never did come back. So I realized, oh, I think I need more pumps. So at some point I already did put in more pumps. Weird. So that one must have just been a glitch because I should have had enough at this point now. I don't have enough for a fire station because I am at 405 and fire station cost 500. So I put it up to Cheetah, let it sit for a little bit. Obviously now I can afford a fire station. We need to cut back on services in order to, we can't do that. We're already down to our lowest amount, except for, of course, that transit authority, which again, I don't touch because of that. So we need energy conservation. Again, I try really hard to listen to these people. I am not going to let them put me in the poorhouse, but they will help me make the city safer, make the city healthier, and make the city more attractive to people so that people will want to move in. So I do try to listen to them as much as humanly possible. When I was a kid, it took me a long time to actually realize what I should have been looking at, what I shouldn't have been looking at. Especially when our transit authority guy kept saying we have too many roads, and me going, but I have just enough roads for like the thing. So Dr. Young develops the airplane. This means, of course, that at some point you're going to need to be putting in an airport. We have a city putting in highways, which is unfortunate because, again, that's one of those things that we're not going to be putting in. And we need a new power plant. So the coal power plant is $4,000. We only have 12, almost 1,300. So obviously we are not working out on that at all. I'm actually getting to a point here where I might be almost done. So we'll have to see. Because I know that I get to a point where I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to get a power plant and I got to get going. So I'm just going to turn it off. Yep, it looks like I was just about to go up to file and save. So we're getting near the end here. This is a great start. And if we ever do this again, I would love to continue this particular city. And then that way we can kind of try and make this a little bit more sustainable. I may play a little bit off just to try and get that new power plant to be put in. I was trying to figure out why it saved as new city, but whatever. I don't know what city I saved over, unfortunately. But obviously I don't play as often as I probably could. So, there's that. But I will see you guys all next week. And Dylan, we hopefully will see you tomorrow, or else this might be another one of those weeks that I'm the only one putting up videos. Yay! And I'm sorry about the black screen, but you know, I ran out of stuff, and I'm not gonna turn on my camera just to do an outro. So I will see you guys all next week, and Dylan will hopefully see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.